It's that time of year again, so without further ado, I decided to give you guys a ranking of the Home Alone franchise. This is a series of films that began in 1990 and is still ongoing even to this day. There are some good films in this franchise and some great ones as well, and some absolute turds. So without further ado, I figure I'd give you guys my ranking from worst to best. Starting with Home Alone 4, Taking Back the House. This one is just not very good. The fourth film in the franchise, and the only one to actually star Kevin and his family again outside of the first two. This one has an entirely new cast of actors playing the original characters. And what you get is a pretty terrible straight-to-video sequel. Everything about this sequel is lazy. Hell, even the kid they got to play Kevin looks absolutely nothing like Macaulay Culkin. I'm not saying that you had to get a blonde kid to play Macaulay, but that's like one of his most defining features, so you couldn't have dyed the kid's hair. This one also sees the return of Marv, this time played by French Stewart instead of Daniel Stern. And he's trying his best here, but it's really hard to save this movie. Even the plot is kind of dour this time around, showing Kevin's dad getting a divorce from the mom, and all the while Marv and his new girlfriend, I guess, are trying to break into the house. It's just a weird plot. There's really no laughs here. It is a dictionary definition of a cheap cash-in. Next, we have a movie that I don't own because, well, it's not been released physically, and that's Home Sweet Home Alone. The sixth installment into the Home Alone franchise, Home Sweet Home Alone, sees a new kid who's British this time around. I don't know why. The film still takes place in America, but alright, no problem. And his neighbors are trying to break into his house to get back a doll so they don't lose their house because they're broke. Kind of a weird plot for a Home Alone film to have the villains basically be, well, good guys. The only reason they've been breaking into his house is because they assumed that the kid actually stole the doll from them, which is priceless, and thus they want to get it back. The only ties the movie has to the original two is that you do see Buzz in the movie, played by the same actor. He's a cop this time around, and he has a little brief cameo, which is kind of neat, and they even mentioned Kevin briefly. All in all, better than Home Alone 4, especially because it has higher production value, but much like 4, it's just really lazy, and it has a weird message. Coming in at fourth place is Home Alone 5, The Holiday Heist. This one is a slight improvement over Home Alone 4 and, well, 6, and they even have Malcolm McDowell this time around playing the villain, which I kind of do like. He's giving it his all, and he really is trying this time around, but there's just not much about this film that's really worth talking about. Essentially, Malcolm McDowell and his group of thieves want to break into this family's house because they think they have a priceless art piece, and thus the movie pretty much just plays out like that. The kid's not even really home alone this time. He's actually home with his sister, and he kind of just like an annoying sibling. Why I put this one higher than 4 and 6 is that they actually does have a few chuckle-worthy moments, including a scene where this dad asked the daughter if he'd like to help him do something, and the kid responds with, "I'd rather die," which is something that I said a lot when I was younger, jokingly, of course. All in all, not a great film, but at least has a few chuckles here, and like I said, Malcolm McDowell, it's always cool seeing him, even if it's in a shitty movie. The best of the straight-to-video Home Alone films, but honestly, the charm is not here, the magic is not here, and ultimately lazy, just like 4 and 6, but watchable. Now we're getting into the meat of things. Coming in at third place is Home Alone 3. I actually like this one. This one is really more of a spin-off than a sequel. I'm not saying it ignores the first two films, but it's about a completely different kid. This time around, there's a kid named Alex, who's not even really home alone. His parents are just at work. And in the film, there's these robbers who are essentially terrorists. They want to get this chip back that was hidden inside a toy car that Alex gets his hands on. The chip is actually made for guided missiles, and it's kind of like a Die Hard plot wrapped into a Home Alone film. So the stakes are higher than they've ever been, and I guess that was their way of trying to one-up the first two films, and it works in some ways. The new kid, Alex, is actually pretty good. He's not bad at all. Mind you, he's not as good as Macaulay Culkin in the first two films, but you could do a lot worse. All in all, a fun sequel that shows the kid trying to stop multiple robbers this time around, and it did have some heart to it. It's not as good as Home Alone 1 or 2, but I do admit that Home Alone 3 still has some of that magic. Number 2 is actually rather difficult for me, because I wasn't sure if I liked the second film more than the first, and the first more than the second. Ultimately, though, it was tough, but I had to make a split decision, and I think the second best would have to be Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. This is a great sequel. I really love Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, and it captures a lot of the magic of that original film. This time, Kevin accidentally gets on the wrong plane when his family goes on vacation yet again, and he ends up in New York City. And this is not like some movies like, say, Jason Takes Manhattan or even Scream 6. No, this film actually features a lot of New York City. There's also some great side characters this time around, one of which is Tim Curry, who plays like a hotel concierge, and Rob Schneider, who also plays a worker at the hotel. There's even a cameo by former President Donald Trump, and make of that what you will, but I always thought that was kind of funny. The film was actually really hilarious. There's great gags this time around. They even managed to give Kevin a house to build the traps in for the finale, but does have one slight problem, and that's that it's very similar to the first film. However, I don't think that's really a bad thing. Some people actually don't like this one because it's too similar to the first, but I think it actually works in this scenario. Every now and then you'll have a movie that just kind of repeats the first film, but when it comes to this one, they actually make it work. Yes, there are similarities here, and I do think some of them are a little bit lazy, but for the most part, it does feel like its own unique film. And they really one up the first one in a lot of ways. You know, the traps are more brutal this time around. The action is all there. It's a fun little movie. All in all, I really do enjoy Home Alone 2, and I think it's a great sequel, and it's almost as good as the original. But you just can't beat the classic. Number 1, from John Hughes' 1990s Home Alone. This film is great. Directed by Chris Columbus, who also did Home Alone 2. Hell, he also directed the first 2 Harry Potter films. Comes a movie that is a timeless classic. This film basically shows a kid who lives in a well-to-do neighborhood with a big family. It's the holiday seasons, and his extended family is visiting, and all hell breaks loose, and it's just really hectic. This really gets on Kevin's nerves, and he wishes that his family disappeared, and, well, magically they do. But not really. They just left him home alone. They didn't realize they did this, and while they're trying to get back home, he has to fend off robbers who are trying to break into his house. It's such a fun premise. It's really funny, really entertaining. It stars Joe Pesci as Harry, who is absolutely hilarious, and Daniel Stern as Marv, who is also hilarious, and they both play these robbers called the Wet Bandits. They really make the film, I think, and they're like the funniest parts of it. But Macaulay Culkin as Kevin McAllister is great as well. Everyone in this movie is magnificently cast. Hell, John Candy even has a brief part in the movie as a polka musician. And honestly, it's just great. There's nothing bad I can say about this movie. I honestly probably would give it a 10 out of 10. It is just magnificent. One of my favorite holiday films. And if you want a great time, and if you have kids or just family and they haven't ever seen this one, sit them down this Christmas and have them watch Home Alone. Well, that's my list. All in all, I have to think that the first 3 films in this franchise are really great. Even though Home Alone 3 might not be as good as the first 2, I think it's a worthy sequel to these, and I actually rather do enjoy it. There are some better Christmas movies out there. Like, I don't think this is quite as good as, say, Christmas Vacation or even Batman Returns. But all in all, the Home Alone franchise is more good than it is bad. And the first 3 are amazing. And the other 3, well, I can really just never watch those again and be completely fine. This has been a fun video to make. I hope all of you have a Merry Christmas. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, have a happy holiday season. Thank you all for watching, and peace out.